Anthony Colandrea is a talented quarterback who can move and really has a good arm, but sometimes we worry about his interceptions. Alex Orji is one of the most athletic human beings that has ever walked the planet Earth, but can he throw the football? Dan Mullen has a huge decision in front of him. I'm going to tell you what he should do. This is the Let's Run podcast. Folks, welcome into the show today. Thank you so much for checking this out, Rebel fans and college football fans. I think that this UNLV quarterback battle is genuinely really fascinating because, a lot of Rebel fans have had inklings about which way this quarterback battle is going to go. But both of these guys, I was pretty surprised when UNLV signed Anthony Colandrea. I was kind of under the impression that, him and Cam Friel, when he had announced his return, I was kind of under the impression that they were, that was going to be the quarterback room. And then maybe Gail Ochoa, a recruit out of El Paso, Texas, maybe be the third string. That was my impression of what the UNLV quarterback battle was going to look like. But then we get the bombshell report, which was nationally reported, that Alex Orji was going to join the UNLV football quarterback room. The transfer from Michigan, who started 2 games last season. Michigan fans consistently, and really not just Michigan fans, but like fans across college football, consistently were just blown away and in awe of his incredible athleticism. He is an incredible runner. He is 6'3", like 240 pounds or something, 235 of just pure muscle. I saw a video of him dunking a basketball the other day, and it was one of the most impressive things that I've seen from a person who plays quarterback in college. So Dan Mullen really kind of left no question. Dan Mullen did not want to be in a position where he did not have a talented person to play quarterback. And between Cam Friel, who is an extremely experienced, longtime UNLV football player who will be the consummate professional third stringer, Anthony Colandrea, who has all the talent in the world to be a good thrower of the football, to move in and out of the pocket with ease, and Alex Orji, who is just a freak of nature and, wasn't perfect at Michigan. People became frustrated with him and his lack of ability to pass the football pretty quickly there. But people in Michigan do speak highly of Alex Orji as a player. And he was there for 3 years. He was, I think, the third string quarterback when J.J. McCarthy, and that was the same year UNLV played them, actually, when J.J. McCarthy and the Michigan Wolverines, who I think are about to have the hammer brought down on them for all the NCAA spying and all those allegations of cheating that they had. But people at Michigan, at the University of Michigan, always had very good things to say about Alex Orji, which was kind of what surprised me when Dan Mullen brought Alex Orji in, because, I thought that Anthony Colandrea had the job pretty much promised to him when he committed. And Dan Mullen pretty clearly, didn't promise anybody anything. And I think from what I can tell, Dan Mullen has given each of these quarterbacks, and I think he's given it to Cam Friel too, I don't want to say equal, but a realistic opportunity to win the job. And so I kind of want to go over Anthony Colandrea and Alex Orji and break down their games a little bit, talk about some of their statistics, and just tell you who, obviously Dan Mullen is going to make this decision. And so a lot of people focus on who will be the starter. What I think is the more interesting conversation for a show like this is who should be the starter. First of all, let's open up Anthony Colandrea's stats here. And let's talk about his career stats as a player. So Anthony Colandrea, he played, how many games did he play his first year? Not as many as both. I think he was basically the starter I thought maybe he had sat a little bit his freshman year, but at the University of Virginia, which, if you look at Virginia in 2023 and 2024, the years that Anthony Colandrea was playing there, he was a pretty good recruit out of high school, and came in and, so I was right. He didn't play as many games his freshman year as he did his sophomore year. There was a guy named Musket who that's kind of funny because Virginia, I think their mascot is the Cavaliers, so having a quarterback named Musket's kind of funny. But Colandrea, after Musket really struggled in their first game in his freshman season, he came in through 377 yards against a very good James Madison team, almost led Virginia to victory, and then kind of, I believe, got hurt and came back at the end of the year. Virginia, not a great football program, especially since head coach Bronco Mendenhall resigned from there. I think 2022 was Mendenhall's last season at Virginia, but I could be wrong. But a really impressive, for a freshman quarterback to come in, it is really tough. And so to throw 377 yards, to have all these games with very high passing yards, I think is impressive as a freshman, despite the fact that Virginia wasn't all that good. Then in his sophomore year, Virginia really probably should have, they were at 4 wins, 4-1, with wins at Wake Forest. They won at Coastal Carolina. They had beaten Boston College. I think everything was kind of looking good. Colandrea was playing well, was playing within himself. And then, Virginia kind of fell apart later on in the season. They lose a close game to Louisville. They lose a tough game where Colandrea really doesn't play very well to Clemson. They lose a brutal game to North Carolina before winning a crazy game against Pittsburgh. But at 5-4, at 4-1, they really probably should have gotten to bowl eligibility. And Colandrea, I think there were some injury issues. There were some turnover issues. And ultimately, the Virginia Cavaliers kind of peter out with him as their starting quarterback. Um, Pulling up some tape, Colandrea is what I would say he's he kind of reminds me of a pro style quarterback. Here's a video of him running the football. This is something that I think Rebel fans have kind of underrated about Colandrea, is he's pretty quick, and I think he is good at exploding out of the pocket and getting downfield. I'm a big fan of, again, we talk about him throwing the football, but I'm actually I think his running game as a player is a little underrated. He's a good athlete. And in the pocket, this is a great throw. Watch this. Actually, he kind of underthrew him. Never mind, if that wasn't the throw that I was thinking of. But I just think that corner, that safety, really just didn't do a very good job there. But Colandrea is, again, watch this. I mean, he's moving, he's on the move. A player that I would say that Colandrea kind of reminds me of is, and his NFL career notwithstanding, Colandrea kind of reminds me of like Zach Wilson. Not as talented as Zach Wilson, not as good of an arm as Zach Wilson, but not that far off. Again, here is, does he throw this? Yeah, okay. Here's another great video. He's a good runner, man. I mean, he's quick. I don't think that Alex Orji is going to come into the quarterback room and say, I'm the only quarterback that can be a dual threat. Colandrea really can be a dual threat quarterback. And I think it's pretty impressive, some of the plays that he's willing to make inside the pocket. This is, again, look at this. I mean, he's running a lot more than people think he does, because he throws a lot and because he has a lot of passing yards. He's really kind of a do-it-all quarterback. And Virginia, the ACC is a league that, at the top, obviously, Clemson, Florida State, some years, although Florida State is kind of a crapshoot, as all of us have come to know. This was a better throw. I mean, that, he threw that big receiver, tight end. I think that's a tight end. Really only threw it to a place where he could get to it. He throws 6 or 7 balls like this every single game. He's not huge. Another player that I would like him to be like, I wish he could. You can kind of see, and Rebel fans will remember him, Kyle McCord at Syracuse. And obviously I think that Colandrea runs quite a bit more than Kyle McCord did. But, with Dan Mullen, who has been seen as a quarterback whisperer throughout his career, I feel like Colandrea has a chance to kind of take in that, like, throw 40 times a game type of game. Now, with guys like Jet Thomas on this roster, Wake Forest, their defense was struggling a little bit in this game. But with guys like Jet Thomas on the roster and Jaden Glover from Utah, and I think our running back room is good enough that we're not going to be like Syracuse was, where Kyle McCord was throwing 60 times a game. But I really do think that Colandrea can be the head of an efficient and balanced offense, especially with a guy like Dan Mullen at the helm. He can make the throw downfield, if not a little inconsistently, and he sometimes will throw the ball into danger. Again, look at this. I mean, he's pretty quick side to side. I really like him as a player and how he runs. It's funny that we think of him as the pocket passer and Orji as the runner, but guys, this guy can move. Look at this. He's quick. Look what he does to number 45 here. He goes, whoop, just right to the side. I think that really shows a look at that ugly Coastal Carolina field. That was a good throw to the outside. And again, running out of the pockets, I feel like Colandrea, while he does have a good arm, I do find he underthrows the ball a little too often. If I wanted to throw a complaint about his arm, and I feel like a lot of his best throws are a little just there's not quite enough juice on him. In fact, I don't think he is as obviously he's a much better thrower of the football. This look at this, watch this, guys. I mean, like blown away by this. What a not this one, but look at this pressure in the pocket, throws it to where only the receiver can catch it. I think that is indicative of the type of talent he has, although he tends to underthrow the ball when he's throwing the ball downfield. And again, these are his absolute highlights. So when somebody was putting together, that was more of a design play. I mean, they kind of invited the blitz, opened up the field. Really nice play for him against a good Louisville team. But again, look at this, guys. Look at him in the pocket. This is just great. Decision making, the timing. I'm blown away by his ability to run. And he kind of reminds me, he kind of moves in a similar way to like how I would see Jacob DeJesus run on the field, where he's almost so small. And it's not that he's like the tiniest player of all time, but he's quick and he's shifty and he's agile and he moves well side to side. And so again, I mean, look, he's under. Again, here's another problem where that ball is slightly underthrown. Luckily, Clemson had a bit of a blown coverage there. I don't think that was Clemson's first string defensive backs and corners in. But ultimately, my evaluation of Colandrea as a player is he is the player that has the highest ceiling. I don't know if that's actually fair to say. I think that if you played out UNLV's season 100 times, most of the best outcomes would be with Anthony Colandrea as the starter. Now, that doesn't mean I think he's going to get the job automatically. We still have to evaluate Alex Orji as a player. But Anthony Colandrea has all the talent in the world. He moves well. He can throw absolute darts. He's a little inconsistent, but again, you have to remember a lot of this. He was a freshman and sophomore at a school that really, had just come off losing their head coach. And I think it's important and his stats weren't bad. I mean, he threw 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions in his second year as a sophomore. I mean, that's not great, but for a school that was in as bad of a position as Virginia, I just think that, Colandrea was really working in a tough position and really did about as well as you could hope. And if Dan Mullen can get him on the right track and help prevent some of those pretty bad underthrows that you can see consistently in his tape, even in his highlights. I'm not going to show his I'm not going to show his all of his interceptions because a lot of them are just bad communication with his receivers. Again, some underthrows, and I think he has a high ceiling as a player, but I kind of feel the same way. And again, a lot of Rebel fans are just assuming that Anthony Colandrea is going to get the starting job when I actually kind of feel that Alex Orji, and this is why I was hesitant saying that Anthony Colandrea had the highest ceiling. I actually think the best version of the Rebels might be Dan Mullen turning as the quarterback whisperer himself that he has been called, not by UNLV fans, outside of college football. People have known Dan Mullen to be a quarterback whisperer, taking a guy like Tim Tebow to 2 national championships as the offensive coordinator, and doing marvelous things at Florida and at Mississippi State. And people will say, well, he got fired at Florida. Dan Mullen was a heck of a good coach at Florida. And Florida's own issues as a program had just as much to do with Dan Mullen having a rough last year and a half as their head coach as Dan Mullen himself. But Alex Orji is just a freak specimen. Look at 6'3", 240. Let me see if I can find the video of Alex Orji dunking a basketball. Because, listen, there's a lot of football players that, a lot of wide receivers, corners, even defensive tackles, that can dunk a basketball. But quarterbacks, the quarterback position generally is, actually, I can't find the video. But, the quarterback position is look at that. I mean, he's just such a. Okay, I'm gonna have to share this. I've never seen this video before, but 18. Look at the balance this takes. This is him at the gym at Michigan, and the amount of leg strength, coordination, and balance that takes to do. I think is pretty impressive. And I mean, if it's just on a flat surface, people might say, oh, whatever. This is on a wobbly block. And Alex Orji has kind of the history and the reputation in the weight room, kind of like a guy, and this is a bit of an exaggeration, but if you've ever heard of stories of Adrian Peterson, benching and doing squats and doing box jumps, Alex Orji has that reputation as a physical athlete and a specimen. And Michigan, I don't know that Harbaugh always, and last year wasn't Harbaugh obviously, but I don't know that Michigan as a program always does a great job of letting quarterbacks be themselves. In fact, I would say that they kind of constricted guys like JJ McCarthy sometimes into systems where I think that they were capable of doing more than the head coach allowed them to do. And so ultimately, when it comes to Alex Orji as a player, he is one of the most. Let's pull up some clips here. Let's share this tab instead. He is just an unbelievable. Oh, sorry, some roller coaster video there. He is just an unbelievable athlete. And in Michigan, he was often brought in this exact scenario. And I could see Coach Dan Mullen doing the same with him. We're at the goal line. We're not our line. If there's one thing that worries me about UNLV football going into this year, it's I'm worried about the size of our line, offensive and defensive. Defensive, probably I feel a little bit more confident than the offensive line. But Alex Orji can help make up for some of that lack of size with just pure athleticism from the quarterback position. I mean, Anthony Colandrea is a good runner, but Alex Orji is a great runner. Alex Orji, he's not a running back, obviously, but he can move and power through guys like a running back, like a power back can. And it sucks because I feel similarly, and obviously I think Taysom Hill is even probably a better athlete. But if you know Taysom Hill from the Saints, he also played for BYU football. Alex Orji kind of has a similar vibe in how you can use him. Just kind of wildcat, pistol, whatever. You can sit him back there and just say this is a football player and he's going to do football player things. And ultimately, I mean, that's not a great throw, but ultimately, he is just such an asset to have on the team. And I know Michigan appreciated having him, even if he didn't quite live up to the standards and the hopes of the Michigan Wolverine faithful. He is just such a good football player and fast and quick and nimble and great balance. And the problem with Alex Orji is that he can't really throw the football that well. They have, they tried a lot of short design kind of passes just out of the pocket. That's probably one of his better throws in his whole time as a Michigan quarterback. But he takes a little bit too much time to get rid of the ball at times. And sometimes his release isn't quite quick enough. And it can feel a little clunky in the backfield. And, while Harbaugh isn't, I obviously criticize Harbaugh as a coach of a quarterback a little bit. He's still a good coach, and still a good quarterback coach. And so, what surprises me most about the Alex Orji signing is not that we signed him. It's that he didn't go to a position, a school where he had a better chance. And this is literally a Michigan fan who loved Alex Orji as a person, who just made a clip, a YouTube video clip. He was very well liked and very well appreciated at the University of Michigan. And I think that says a lot about him as a player. It says a lot about him as a human being. He's a freak athlete. Can he throw the football? We don't really know. He's shown for 3 years that he can't. But he was at Michigan. The bottom of the Big Ten is not some murderer's row of competition, but he did play against some higher level competition, probably than the middle and the bottom of the Mountain West. Do I think that Alex Orji could be the starting quarterback to a UNLV team beating up on the bottom, middle, the weaker parts of its schedule? Yes, I do. Do I think that he could be a quarterback that would dominate a UCLA, a Boise State, even a team like Colorado State? I worry that he can't. And so, who should be the starter? Anthony Colandrea's got the stats. He's a more traditional player. But should Alex Orji be the starter? Ultimately, I have to give the boring answer. I feel more comfortable with Anthony Colandrea. I have said since the beginning that I think Anthony Colandrea is a better player than Alex Orji and has more experience. And therefore, I'm going to give the boring answer. And I'm going to say that Anthony Colandrea should be the starter. But if Dan Mullen came out and said, hey, guys, I'm starting Alex Orji, I would not be surprised. And especially in these first two games, if UNLV does really well against Sam Houston and UNLV does very well against Idaho State, I can absolutely see them under Alex Orji. Maybe he proves Anthony Colandrea. You know, if Anthony Colandrea struggles a little bit in these first two games, and if they're blowouts and Alex Orji is humming with the offense, maybe we could see Alex Orji be the starter for the UCLA game. But Anthony Colandrea should and likely will be the starter, and Alex Orji will probably get more playing time than he did at Michigan in goal line situations, and just kind of a trick play here, here and there. Ultimately, Alex Orji's not going to be the starter, and Anthony Colandrea will, and Anthony Colandrea should be the starter. But I don't think that should discount how valuable Alex Orji can be to this team. So guys, thank you so much for checking out the video. I appreciate, I talk a lot about non-UNLV things sometimes on YouTube, although it's always UNLV related. So I appreciate the Rebel fans that want a little bit more UNLV specific content, checking out the podcast. And I just think that this is, UNLV could be a very good G5 team this year, and this quarterback battle means something. So guys, please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, wonderful rest of your weekend. And like 9 days from now, guys, we're watching UNLV football. Let's run.